Welcome back to the Carousel, your number one show for college basketball rumors, news, and scoop on coaching changes happening during the offseason. We're getting there. It's March, officially March 2nd, the best month of the year. Brian, good afternoon, good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm well. I'm well. Looking forward to it. It's March, and no better time, especially this March. You feel like every March is the best March as far as tournament, as far as unpredictability. Same with jobs. So yeah, excited for March. Always am.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as always, we're here on the show to discuss kind of rumors and shine light on people. Not to sit here and speculate over who's going to lose their job, what jobs will open. When jobs open, we'll discuss them right away, and that's what we're going to do today. So, B, let's get started, man. We talked about this last week. Maine came open,
Yes.
and usually we're so good at like immediately talking about who's in place as the interim head coach because we're always, as former coaches, we're always rooting for those guys.
Of course.
We failed to do that last week. So talk a little bit about Jay Stedman, the interim head coach at Maine.
Yeah, Jay Stedman actually had the same really tragic situation that happened last year. We know what happened with Coach Lou Hill, great coach. They were winning the conference at the time in the WAC, and unfortunately passed away. And then shortly after that, Jay was named the interim there. Way difficult situation. I don't think they had intentions to give him an opportunity to keep it necessarily, but he's getting the chance to do it again, which is really awesome and rare in this business that you get a chance to do it. I don't know the whole story of what happened at Maine, to be honest, but I'm excited for Jay. You see the locker room after their first win and how the guys kind of rallied behind him, which I think is always just a cool thing. Obviously, that's kind of a cultural norm now anyway, to celebrate wins, but to see how they celebrated that was really cool. And rooting for Jay to have an opportunity. You know, you never know how those things go, even if it's just for a year, similar to what Lavelle Sanders, who we had on last show. Excuse my pause and freeze here. Lavelle Sanders, who we had on last show, he had an opportunity to be the interim for a year and see what happens, and then he earned the job. So we're pulling for Jay, and hopefully he gets that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those that don't know Jay is like first of all, one of the nicest dudes in the business. Number two, one of the hardest working guys. You always see him on the road. He always knows where to find players, what type of players to bring into the program he's at. He's just one of these guys that's been at it for years and years. He's a pro, and he's just, never really had that huge break. And hopefully this is it. I know we talked at length about Nisha Curry, which would be amazing too, last week, as the first female to potentially get a head job on the men's side, but would love to see Jay get that job as well. So we'll keep you posted on what happens at Maine. In the meantime, we had a big one open yesterday over in, well, I guess it's outside of Boston at UMass. Talk to us about that one, B.
Yeah, just not able to quite get it going. Obviously, known for the Calipari days back in the day with Marcus Camby and the crew that they had there. So, fans get spoiled. It's probably not the job that it was at that point in time, but still a really good job in a great league, great basketball league. When they are winning, like a lot of places, they do support it and they're behind it. So there'll be some people trying to get a job like that in the A10.
Yeah, no question. And I do think, though, it's like a harder job than people think. The A10 is so good.
So good. And it's getting better next year, adding Loyola Chicago.
That's right. That's right. It only gets better. You got Davidson, who is like year in and year out so good. You got Dayton that has as good a program support from their community as anybody. And how about the job that Anthony Grant's doing this year, by the way? 22 wins already this season in a year that was supposed to be a rebuild.
Right. Big win last night.
That's right. At the buzzer, a little alley-oop play, baseline out of bounds. How about that?
Big time X's and O's right there. Let's go.
Yeah.
Shout out to Andy Verrill.
So, but I think you're right, though. I think like people think UMass, oh, this is a great job because Calipari took them to the Final Four, Elite Eight, or whatever he took them to. But it is a hard job. It is a very hard job. Obviously, Matt McCall had a ton of success at his previous stop at Chattanooga, but wasn't able to get it done here at UMass. Again, much harder job compared to its league. But let's talk about some names. There's been a ton thrown out.
Yep.
What names have you heard?
I kind of listened to a like a little press conference or open conversation more or less yesterday around this job, just because I was interested. And it sounds like they will be able to maybe they're looking to put some more finances to make this an even more higher paying job. It sounds like recruiting base in the area is important to them. Sounds like they kind of hired outside of that with Matt McCall. He had the personality, so to speak, and the kind of some of those other things, but didn't have the ties to the area and maybe didn't hire the staffing to help him with that. So that's kind of, again, the people at UMass, their media people, that's what they had to say. So some of the names they mentioned was Kamani Young, which obviously a hot name right now. The awesome job he did in the win against Villanova, associate head coach at UConn, would be great. Has ties to that area. Bashir Mason, who's done a tremendous job at Wagner. He's won 3 conference titles there. Has a chance to compete to go to the tournament. They finished second in the first place game against Bryant, which was really high level this weekend. Grasso at Bryant, who was also a name mentioned, who would be a good one. I heard Autry from Syracuse, maybe a name, and he may be the one getting Syracuse when Boeheim retires. So then the other name, Jerry McNamara, was brought up as, okay, well, if he's not getting the Syracuse job, then maybe he gets this job. So his name was mentioned. Coach Carm at a friend of ours, Coaches for Change, and Siena. He's not gotten Coach of the Year yet. A friend of mine made sure I mentioned that because he's won the league and not been picked maybe to win the league. And then he didn't get picked to win the league this year, and they finished toward the top. So shout out to Coach Carm, doing a great job there. And then the one in league that was pretty interesting that they brought up first was Mark Schmidt. And they felt like, St. Bonaventure, he's maxed out everything you can do. It doesn't have the same kind of resources that UMass can have. So they can probably pay him a little bit more. And once he gets it going, the fan base will be behind. Obviously, St. Bonaventure is behind him now, but hard to mention people that are in jobs, but that's what they brought up. So we mentioned it.
All right, cool. I like it. I don't like the last name. I think that one's crazy and wishful thinking by the hometown media. But I think Coach Mason at Wagner, I'm a big fan of people that can win at hard jobs, and Wagner is a hard one, and Coach Mason has done that. Coach Carm at Siena, although Siena's a good job. Jared Grasso, Brian, I like. I'll throw some other names out there that I've read, and then I'm going to give you some names that I personally like. I read Archie Miller this morning, of course, former Indiana coach that's been sitting out, working for ESPN this year. I could see that one. Let's see. What else did I read? James Jones at Yale, obviously done a tremendous job at Yale. Not an easy place to win in the Ivy League. I could see that one as well. And James Jones obviously doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't get as much credit as he deserves, and has been a proven winner over the course of like 20 years.
Yep.
So I don't know why his name doesn't get thrown out more. Maybe you can attract him to UMass. I'm sure he could get, a nice little pay raise taking that job, although he definitely has Yale going in the Ivy League at the moment. Another guy that gets mentioned, but for whatever reason, these are my names now that I think they should consider. Griff Aldridge at Longwood again.
Yeah, they did mention him yesterday. They did.
Oh, you did hear that one. Good. Okay.
Yeah, he's at a hard job. He was mentioned yesterday for being able to do what he's done at Longwood, and I think he would probably be good. I think the part that they were curious about is, does the recruiting ties fit? And I don't know enough about his background, but
well, yeah, he's
I would say if you can win at Longwood, you probably can win at UMass.
Yeah, well, great. Yeah, no doubt. And they're both in the Northeast. I mean, Longwood, Virginia. I don't know if you consider that the Northeast or not, but I do. Plus, he's got a lot of, from what I understand, I think he's got a lot of Northeast prep school ties.
Yeah, I think that's what they were saying.
But the other guys, Shaheen Holloway at St. Peter's is a
Yep.
guy that I think should be mentioned. Our guy Rob Jones at Norfolk State, who has done nothing but win at the highest level, as you
Yep.
would know better than anyone. Be
Yeah.
um,
Went down there.
yeah, you did your documentary on Inside Access, behind the scenes for one
Yeah.
of the most successful programs in college basketball. So yeah, I don't know why his name doesn't get thrown around, but he's certainly deserving. Proven winner in that region of the country, and I don't know if this fits from a profile standpoint in terms of uh, the type of school compared to the academic profile, I should say. But how about Matt Langle? What he's done at Colgate, winning
Hmm.
that league. Colgate, another very hard job. Now,
Done it again.
I know 2 years in a row, crazy, crazy. Colgate guys, Colgate
Yeah.
winning conference championships. So if you can do that, you can coach. Now,
I just,
Colgate is a high academic school, and
yeah.
like they're recruiting to a certain profile. And when you think UMass, I'm sure it's a great institution, but it's not. I don't think like that Ivy League, Patriot League type academics. So,
Yeah, they
um,
brought up somebody mentioned your guy, our guy, but your guy in particular, Adam Cohen, yesterday. They talked about him being an academic guy and maybe being and that's when somebody talked about West Coast. But he's like, yeah, but he has ties. So
yeah,
yeah,
but Adam Cohen is from Buffalo, New York.
that's what they said.
He spent time there at Harvard, spent several years at Harvard. So,
Talked
yeah, that
about
one would make sense as well.
the
That's
pros that
a
he's
heck of a job.
recruited. The hard part is like, you know, I think you made a good point. Somebody who's wanted hard jobs, when you had somebody who's just struggled the way that they struggled and they really want to get it going, they feel like it's a critical hire. So I would bet, my guess is that they're going to hire somebody who's already sitting in that seat or has sat in that seat. I don't think they're going to hire a first time head coach. In my personal opinion, just from listening yesterday to their media people talk about it, it sounds like this is a really big hire for the AD, really big hire for the program to kind of get back going. As we mentioned, the league is getting harder and harder. They mentioned some of the teams at the top of the league, resource-wise, Dayton, VCU, St. Louis, and just trying to compete. You can get in that next conversation hiring the right coach, but if you don't, then you may be stumbling down and then other people continue to gain ground. So I would bet they hire a sitting head coach is my guess. Or
Yeah, although
or a previous head coach.
yeah, yep. Although going back to when Matt McCall got the job, I don't know if you remember, but so Matt was the head coach. He was a sitting head coach at UT
Right.
Chattanooga. And obviously his tenure has come to an end there. So that didn't work out. But before that, they offered the job and the job was accepted. I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah.
Pat Kelsey agreed to take the job.
Yep.
And that would have been his first head coaching job. I think he was out of the business, right? Or was he I'm pretty sure he was at that point.
I thought he was at Winthrop at the
Was
time, but I think he was at Winthrop at the time.
Was he already back at Winthrop? Okay. I couldn't remember if he had been out and hadn't taken that Winthrop job yet, or if he was maybe 1 year into Winthrop. But yeah, that was so that just to give you an idea of where the AD Ryan Bamford, who shout out to him, spoke at the first and only Rising ADs conference back in like 2014, maybe. At the time, he was an assistant AD. Now he's the man in charge, the boss at UMass. So we'll see where he goes. But that gives you a little insight to what he was going to do several years ago. Pat Kelsey, Matt McCall was attracted to those kind of young, up and coming head coaches. So we'll see if he does something similar here. Another one in the Northeast, Lafayette. Coach O'Hanlon announced that he's going to retire at the end of the season. As decorated of a head coach as ever in the Patriot League, 27 years there, which is an unbelievable achievement. A lot of times when you see that, you see an assistant coach take over, but sometimes, a school will look to bring in fresh blood.
Right.
What are your thoughts here on the Lafayette job?
You know what? I think there's been some success in hiring some of the high major assistants that have been at academic places. So, and Adam Cohen, Tavares Hardy's had some great success at. He came from Georgetown, Northwestern, Georgia Tech. So I would think something like that seems like maybe somebody with some of that young new blood energy to come in and maybe hasn't had an opportunity to be a head coach, but just can, revitalize the program in a different way. Not that it necessarily needs it, but just do it in a different way. But I mean, there may be somebody on staff there too. I don't know enough about their staff, to be honest. There may be someone on staff there that maybe they have some kind of plans to slide over a seat too. Like you said, we always love to see that. So the Patriot League is a different niche. So it has to be somebody who understands that niche and can embrace that niche and can thrive in it.
Yeah, no question. And along those lines, a couple guys that I just will throw out. You mentioned Kamani Young earlier. Luke Murray, also on that UConn staff. He's a name that seems to get thrown around every year for head jobs and hasn't landed one yet, but maybe this was the one for him. And our guy, Brian Eskeldson over at Harvard, assistant coach at Harvard. He's been with Coach Amaker for close to 10 years now.
Yep.
Has been a big part of their success. One of the original Rising Coaches guys, by the way. But obviously familiar with that Northeast area, at one of the highest academic institutions in the world. So would love to see him get a shot at something like that. Yeah, Adam Cohen too. You mentioned him. He's another guy that fits that. So we'll see what happens there at Lafayette, and go from there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to get somebody who's had some, like I said, had some success, like you said, at a high academic school. Let's see what the chain of command by Stadium has as far as the rank. They have him ranked 7th overall in the Patriot League. Now, this is a few years ago now.
You know how I feel about these Stadium rankings. I'm not a fan of them. I don't think what they're talking about. No disrespect, Jeff Goodman.
It's just simply for context, but they base this on history / tradition, media exposure, game atmosphere, budget resources, buy games, recruiting base, facilities, and being able to sell pros. So it looks like, as far as at this time, they are 10th in budget and resources, which is dead last in the league at Lafayette. They're also ranked 9th in facilities, according to this, and 8th in media exposure. So those ones kind of hurt them on their ranking based on this. But so I would say you probably need somebody who's going to be a go-getter that can wear sleeves, and maybe a younger guy who's, has some innovative and creative ways. So for context too, like Loyola at the time, the same league we just mentioned, Tavares Hardy, they're ranked 9th out of 10th. Now Colgate is actually ranked 10th on here at this time. So shows you that, you get the right guy in place, you can win despite the rankings. We know that.
Yeah, and I would say too, another thing, because what does Lafayette pay? What do you think? Just take a stab at it. 250 tops?
I mean,
tops,
I don't
right?
know if it pays that. If it pays that, it's pretty good.
It probably, I would say that's tops. It probably pays around 200,000, which for some of these high major assistants that we mentioned is like a pay cut, or close to it. That's how some of these low major jobs are. And so the other thing you can do, though, that I'm also a big fan of is you find a small college head coach that has been a proven winner in that region,
right,
and give them the opportunity. You've seen that work at several schools, and there's a ton of great coaches at the small college level in the Northeast. So that would be another route that you could go down when you've got a low resource job like that.
Right.
Okay, let's move over. We've talked about this job before, but let's talk a little Illinois State here. Have you heard anything new there? We've talked names in the past.
No, pretty quiet. I really haven't dug into that one much and don't know a ton of anything new, to be honest. I know they wanted to get ahead of it, so they did. It's a little bit of a different timing. I know people have, Aaron and I and you all had mixed opinions on it, but that's what they chose to do. So I'm assuming that they're getting ahead of the game to target somebody in specific. So again, I'm imagining somebody with ties to the area. I think they may very well go with a high major assistant at a job like this. It is a high profile job. It is a job that is one that you can win at and has a great winning tradition. So any names come to mind on that one?
Yeah, a couple names that I read earlier today, and this is from they do a good job. Their media really covers this extensively. Steve Prohm is a name we've talked about on this show before. Yep. And as potentially a front runner for the job. Scott Nagy over at Wright State. It's a step up for sure from Wright State, although Wright State's a very good job. But
Yep.
Scott Nagy's as good as it gets. Ryan Pedon, we had a few people chime in last week after we talked about the job, saying they've heard his name. Of course, the assistant young up and comer at Ohio State. Sadie, how do you say? Is it Sadie or Sadie Washington? Sadie Washington, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, over at Michigan. Tremendous basketball mind, great communicator. And then Roger Powell Jr. over at Gonzaga, who's got ties to the school. I think his father played there, is from that area. And then I'll throw a name out there. How about Preston Spradling over at Morehead State? 2 years in a row, getting Morehead above 20 wins. Not easy to do in Morehead, Kentucky, where there is nothing out there. No disrespect to my people at Morehead, but
I've definitely been. So chain of command, we'll go back to this just for, again, reference. In the Valley at this time, number one job in the league.
So, yeah, it's a really good job.
Yeah, number one game atmosphere, number one budget, number one recruiting base, number one selling pros, 2 in media exposure. It may have changed a little bit now with Loyola, but Loyola is leaving the league. So Illinois State is a premier job in the Missouri Valley. And so, yeah, you definitely would think that they'll be able to get just about anybody that they want that wants to be at that level. So Steve Fromm is a name I've heard a lot of before. Haven't really followed up much on this one, but a high-level job. Like I said, I think there's people probably – the good thing about it being open early is people that have interest are probably reaching out to them via their agent or whatever else. So they probably have a pool that may include some people they may not have thought.
Yeah, for sure. All right, B, there's a couple other jobs still out there. Sacramento State opened. I'll just mention a couple of our rising coaches guys that would love to see. This is a not good job. Brian Katz did a great job over, I think, 20 plus seasons there. But Marlon Stewart over at Oregon State, would love to see him get that opportunity. He's got a ton of experience on the West Coast, as well as Adam Cohen and Jesse Pruitt, both at Stanford, not far from Sacramento. So would love to see it go to one of those guys. But again, very challenging job. Really, really tough one. So whoever gets it is going to have big shoes to fill with Coach
I'm going to be a little this last
trying to carve out an opportunity. What you got going on over there, B? You watching some YouTube videos on the side?
Well, every time I keep pulling up the chain of command, it has a video coming up. So I'm trying to pull up the new league, and they try to advertise. I'm like, I don't want your advertisement.
Well, of course, again, March 2nd, about this time next week, I'm sure we'll have about 5 more to talk about. Lots opening up, but it is conference tournament time this week, next week. So really getting into like truly the best time of the year for basketball fans. I'm excited, man. What games, you got anything left on your broadcast schedule or what?
I do. I got 2 left. I got one tonight. I was going to say on Big Sky as I pull up and interrupt you. So excuse me for that. Big Sky Conference, they have Sacramento State of 11 teams. They have them 9th, which I'm a little surprised it's as high as that. But Idaho State, they have below it. Southern Utah, they have below it. Sacramento State. So not traditionally a great gig. They do have, at this time, when they made this, their recruiting base and their buy games, they have them rated number 2 in the things that obviously location sounds like their buy game situation may be pretty decent. But, yeah, I don't know if they have plans. I think they're in the – I'm trying to think, Big Sky, they're in the bottom third. I think they're maybe third to last. So I think they're actually in the place. They're in 9th of 11 teams right now. So I don't know that they're going to give coach the job that's there, pulling for you if they give you that opportunity. But I would bet after a long time of all this happening and then not having success this year, it may be tricky. Hopefully, again, they give them a year. They would like to see guys get out of a job that put in the work to help build it, but not sure what direction they go. But speaking of on the West Coast, before we talk about games, Seattle made the big hire. So let's talk about that one.
Yeah, finally, Chris Victor gets the nod from interim to permanently being named head coach. Of course, he took over after Jim Hayford stepped down in the preseason after some controversy. It sounds like he may have used some abusive language in practice. some racially charged language. So sometimes from those terrible situations comes an opportunity for somebody. And obviously, Chris was ready for it. They've had a great season. They're in first place in the league. So congratulations to Chris for earning that job.
Yeah, they're in second right now. They have a chance to still get first place, depending on how it goes tonight. New Mexico State has sole possession right now of first place. If they're able to beat Stephen F. Austin, who is on fire right now, so it'll be a big time game tonight. Then New Mexico State wins it. But if New Mexico State happens to lose, um, and they lose Saturday, it could be a three-way tie depending on some things. So Seattle still has a chance. In the WAC chain of command, they have them the third best job. So a really good job the coach has been able to secure. He's done a really good job with it, and just got to tip your hat because those situations are not easy. I don't know if you've ever coached an interim. I have. Those situations are not easy.
You been an interim head coach?
I haven't been the interim head coach, but
Oh,
I've been
okay.
staff where the coach was interim, and
All
it's
right, come on, give us some story time. Where were you at? Where were you at, and what was the situation?
Yeah, I was at IUPY at the time before they hired Matt Crenshaw, and Jason Gardner had unfortunately got into a situation where he was no longer the head coach, so they moved everybody up a seat, and yeah, it's just difficult because there's a lot of moving parts. Obviously, when you're already there, it does help when you're have some and the coach that they moved up was already there. But again, it's hard to win big though, and so credit to Coach Victor because he's been able to compete for a championship and they have a chance to go to the tournament. You know, I think that's the biggest thing. So he's done a good job keeping them together, and they're playing for him, and he does as good of a job as you can do. So shout
I'm
out to
always,
that.
yeah, I'm always curious about this, B. I want to hear your thoughts on it. Like when you get that interim job and it's mid season, you know, you kind of are faced with the challenge of, you know, do you change up what you're doing as a program to make it your own,
Right.
or do you stick with what you're doing so that there's some continuity and you're not
Yeah.
starting over in the middle of the year?
Yeah. So I think most of these situations they happen like right before the season starts. But like you said, everything's in place as far as your off season, usually your preseason, if not just your summer and what you did the year before. So thanks, Siri, for chiming in. So yeah, I would say it's being decisive is super important. Being indecisive is very hard. So in being decisive, usually you want to keep some elements probably of what you already did, just for the familiarity. They're already good at it to an extent if they are good at it. But you do have to put your own spin on it. I think it's really important to not try to be somebody else because you may not get that chance again. So while you have it, make it your own. That's the best thing I can say. Figure out how to use the personnel, make it your own, but do it with conviction because if you're changing all the time and not sure, then that's usually not good.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. I've never been on a I've been fired plenty of times, but I've never been part of a staff that had that change happen mid-season and be involved with an interim. But when I was at Clemson, I was there when Dabo Sweeney became the interim head coach of the football program. And
Yeah.
so I got to get a front row seat to seeing how he approached that. And it was really pretty fascinating. He went
Super,
he probably took over 3 games into the season, I think.
super
They
fast.
fired
I've just
yeah,
heard the story. So yeah, share that with us.
they let Coach Bowden go and gave Dabo the job, and he was the wide receivers coach and like co-offensive coordinator. So it wasn't like he was this big next
Right.
obvious guy up,
Right.
but he really came in and made it his from day one, and he really I think he in the press conference, even from the press conference now, I think he was really respectful to Coach Bowden and thanked him. But it was like, he got that piece said, and then it was like, this is how I am going to run a program. This is what I believe in. This is what we're going to be about. And he really made it his from the jump. And even little things, man, this was fascinating to me. Their office, the football office, was like in the corner of a building and like up against the parking lot where like all the administrators would park and all the coaches would park.
Yeah.
And that thing was always like blinds closed. You never ever could see in there. And as soon as like Dabo got the job, That thing was wide open all the time. You could always like, it's just a small little change, but it's like you see him working. You every day you see him in there working, and he was everywhere. He was at every like softball game, tennis match. Like the dude was really worked it. So I do think, like you said, I think you're exactly right. Like these opportunities don't come along, and they may not come along again. So if you get the opportunity,
got to make it your own.
make
Yeah,
it your own.
even talking to Lavelle before he came on with us, Sanders, and because he was there as well the year before, and it wasn't so much about the signs or the poster, but it was like in his own personality, implementing that within the program and the culture, and kind of having his own pillars and his own things that they believed in and they were going to play by. So I think that's super important to have a clarity and a vision, because players just want direction, and if they feel like you're inconsistent or you're trying to figure out what you're trying to do, then they sniff through all that, and it's just like it's hard for them to buy in. They want to be able to buy in and believe in as soon as possible. I did get a name on my phone. I guess the phone lines are hot now that we're live again. The phone lines are hot.
Absolutely.
Roger Powell from Gonzaga for Illinois State.
We mentioned that one when you talked about Roger. Yep, absolutely.
Illinois. So it looks like that's maybe a name that's getting some steam. Yes, you did mention it, but it sounds like it's going to maybe get a little steam. So we'll see. It would be great to see him there. Obviously, the Gonzaga tree. Shout out to Boise State in the Gonzaga tree. Coach Leon Rice. They just won the Mountain West last night. Long Beach. Dan Munson is competing for their conference championship. Them in Fullerton. Dedrick Taylor. So shout out to them. And then who else is in the Gonzaga tree? I mean, Wyoming technically.
Tommy Lloyd.
I was going to say that next. Wyoming was going to say too. But Tommy Lloyd, yeah, he's killing it. He's number 2 in the country.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I think the Gonzaga tree speaks for itself. So Roger Powell would be a great hire. We'd love to see that.
All right, B, tell us you got 2 regular season games left.
I got a women's game tonight. Wyoming's playing at a super high level on the women's side. They actually went to the NCAA tournament last year. They were the 5 seed. No, 5 or 7. Let me think. I think they might have been the 5 seed last year, but they could have even been 7th. But anyway, to say all that, they are in 3rd place right now. They're on fire. They're playing really well. And they play Colorado State, which is a rival, so always a big game, their last home game. And then I got Fresno State and Coach Hudson playing against Coach Linder at Wyoming as well. Fresno was in the tournament conversation early, just hadn't been able to quite turn the page. But, yeah, that'll be a good last 2 games for me. I got one tonight and one Saturday, and it's a wrap. Season 1 is official.
Well, we got some postseason coming to Birmingham here. I'm excited. I'll be at the Gulf South Conference Tournament at Pete Hanna Arena at Samford this weekend, and then the following weekend, the SWAC Conference Tournament is here at Bartow Arena at UAB's campus. So, very excited to check out. I love conference tournaments. I love watching conference tournaments.
It's the best time.
Absolutely. So I will be in attendance at both of those. So looking forward to it, man. The best time of the year. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Your semi-regular updates on the coaching carousel. Holler at us. The tip line is always open, and we'll see you guys next week.